15,000 players online on the North American server, and the one event that promised to remove submarines and carriers completely couldn't even fill a lobby? 7-minute queues, 9-minute queues. Sometimes I've waited 27 minutes and nothing. How is that possible? For years, players have begged Wargaming for a surface ship only mode. They finally got it, and almost nobody showed up. Today we're breaking down the uncomfortable truth about what this means for the player base, why it happened, and what it tells us about the future of World of Warships. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Normal Guy of the North here. If you've been around the community for a while, you've seen the endless posts about subs and carriers, how they ruin the game, how the matchmaker is unfair, how Wargaming doesn't listen. So when Wargaming released Blast from the Past, a mode built around classic surface combat, no CVS, no subs, no airstrikes, no hybrids, no burst fire, it sounded like the ultimate answer to those complaints. But what we got instead was an empty queue and a major reality check. Blast from the Past was advertised as a nostalgia event, a return to the classic 2015 to 2017 style of World of Warships. You could take out your traditional destroyers, cruisers, and battleships. No sonar pings, no guided torps, no flight decks overhead. It was limited to Tier 9 and 10 using ships that were in the game by 2020 during the first run, and then expanded to include everything up to 2022 in the second. In theory, that meant around 100 to 120 ships were eligible, pretty much all major tech tree and premium ships from the United States, Japan, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. So it wasn't a small pool, there were tons of options. Here's where things went sideways. Even with the NA server population doubling from roughly 7,000 to almost 15,000 online at peak, people were waiting 7 to 9 minutes for a single match. Some players, myself included, saw 30-minute waits that never even launched. That's longer than the average battle itself, and the problem wasn't class imbalance either. I tried queuing in a cruiser, not a battleship, and it didn't make a difference. The matchmaking system just didn't have enough people to pull from. Now the first argument that came up was, well, the mode is too restrictive, only Tier 9 and 10, only older ships, and no new lines. But if you actually check the timeline, 2020 is already 5 years into the game's life. By that point, almost every major branch existed: American heavies, Soviet battleships, French cruisers, Japanese DDs, British everything. When they pushed the cutoff to 2022, it included even more, like the Italian cruisers, the Dutch line, and all the high-tier premiums added during the pandemic years. So the not enough ships argument doesn't hold water. You could easily fill your port with eligible vessels. The real issue isn't content, it's fragmentation. World of Warships already splits its player base into half a dozen active modes: randoms, co-op, ranked, operations, asymmetric, brawls, training rooms, and now temporary events like Blast from the Past. When 15,000 players are online, that number doesn't all feed into one queue. You might only have a few thousand actually sitting in random battles at a given time. Add the Tier 9 and 10 restriction, the ship year cutoff, and the no CVs or subs rule, and the eligible player pool shrinks to a few hundred, spread across 4 server time zones. That's not enough to make a matchmaker happy. Even worse, the game's matchmaker has to mirror ship types, so it needs roughly equal numbers of destroyers, cruisers, and battleships on both teams. If you have 20 battleships and 3 destroyers in queue, the system stalls. It'll hold your BBs hostage waiting for enough small ships to balance. And since the CV/sub free mode removes 2 entire classes that normally offset that imbalance, the problem gets worse. So it's not just a population issue, it's structural. The more filters you add, the slower the system gets. Here's the part that most players underestimate. People will wait maybe 2 minutes for a battle. After that, the drop-off rate skyrockets. Even if the mode is fun, the friction of waiting kills momentum, and that's why most players just go back to random battles. You click battle, you're in within 30 seconds, you earn XP, you complete missions, and you keep progressing. For the average captain, someone who logs in after work for a few matches, that convenience beats purity every single time. So what this really shows is that the loudest voices online don't necessarily represent the majority of players. Yes, there's a dedicated group that despises submarines and carriers, but there's an even bigger group that's indifferent. They'll grumble when they get deleted by a carrier strike, sure, but they'll queue again because the game still gives them missions, credit income, and fast matches. They'd rather play now with subs and CVs than wait 10 minutes for a match without them. And that brings us to incentives, because this is where things get a little complicated. Now, Blast from the Past wasn't completely cut off from missions or rewards. On the public test servers, there were specific combat missions for the mode that granted community tokens and containers, and during the live event, some dockyard and battle pass tasks did recognize BFTP battles for progress. But the problem was consistency. Not every mission counted, not every week lined up, and the mode didn't track normal random battle achievements or appear in your random stats. It also didn't have a dedicated progression track or unique rewards of its own. So unless your active missions specifically mentioned Blast from the Past, playing it often meant slower overall progress compared to randoms, ranked, or asymmetric battles, which always move your grind forward. In a game built around efficiency and resource gain, credits, XP, steel, coal, and doubloons, that uncertainty is enough to turn most players away. When a mode feels like it might waste your time, even a fun one will eventually empty out. This also ties into why Wargaming keeps experimenting with new systems. The game just turned 10 years old. Players who started in high school now have careers and families. Wargaming has to attract new blood, and younger players expect new mechanics. That's why subs arrived despite years of resistance. That's why missiles are being tested now. People forget that even before launch, players were already asking for submarines. There's an old clip of the developer saying they'd never add subs, and here we are. The truth is, the game has to evolve to survive. There's also a divide between the invested veterans, like you, watching videos and reading dev blogs, and the casual crowd that never leaves the client. Most of the player base doesn't check Reddit, Discord, or YouTube. They don't analyze spreadsheets or patch notes. They just log in, play, and log off. So when we see a flood of anti-sub or anti-CV sentiment online, it feels massive. But statistically, it's a small slice of the pie. The rest of the player base either tolerates or ignores those mechanics because they just want to play. To newer players, a mode without subs, CVs, or hybrids isn't nostalgia, it's limitation. They never experienced the old World of Warships, so removing mechanics feels like taking content away, not bringing something back. They want explosions, torpedo bombers, guided torps, flashy, dramatic gameplay. So while veterans see Blast from the Past as back to basics, newcomers see it as less stuff to do. That's a huge perception gap. Wargaming is walking a tightrope. Keep veterans interested without scaring off new players. They need retention and monetization, so they'll keep adding content that generates curiosity. New nations, hybrids, mechanics, and events. If a niche mode like Blast from the Past doesn't bring in strong engagement numbers, it simply won't return. The data speaks louder than the forums. The same thing happened after the CV rework. People said it would kill the game. Instead, we hit record player numbers for the 10th anniversary. So if Wargaming ever tries this again, here's what could make it work. Widen the tier range, make it tier 7 through 10 or even 6 through 10 to open the funnel. Keep the core rule, no subs, no CVs, but stop banning everything else. Let hybrids and airstrikes stay. Equal rewards, give it full random battle credit and XP earnings. Mission compatibility, let event and dockyard progress count. Timed windows, run it like brawls, open a few hours during prime time to concentrate population. Auto rentals, give everyone a few ready ships so nobody's locked out. Faster queues. If all else fails, allow limited bot backfill so matches actually start. If even half of those were implemented, the mode could thrive. When you see a mode that can't fill a match with 15,000 players online, that's not just apathy. It's data telling you what people value. They value speed, progress, and predictability. They don't log in to protest submarines, they log in to blow up ships and collect resources, and that's not a bad thing. It's just how the wider player base engages with live service games. This whole situation is a great reminder that the vocal minority online isn't the entire community. We're the ones reading dev blogs, analyzing patch notes, debating stats, but we're also the minority. Most captains out there don't even know what version number the game is on. So when a mode like Blast from the Past fails to attract players, it doesn't mean the game's doomed, it means the average player's priorities don't line up with the hardcore veterans. And honestly, that's okay. With missiles on the horizon, we'll probably see the same cycle again: panic, outrage, and then slow acceptance. Subs were supposed to kill the game, carriers were supposed to kill the game, and yet here we are 10 years later with record traffic. If anything, Blast from the Past proves that removing content isn't the answer. The future of World of Warships depends on making new content work better, not pretending it never existed. So here's where I land on it. Players don't love submarines and carriers, they just love instant matches and steady progress more than they hate them. Convenience wins every single time. If Wargaming wants to make a mode like this work, they need to respect that. Give people the freedom to play right away and still earn something worthwhile, and they'll show up. Until then, the green battle button in randoms will always win. I'm curious, would you wait 5 or 10 minutes for a CV and sub-free battle if it paid more rewards? Drop your vote in the poll right here and tell me in the comments, what's the longest you've ever waited in Blast from the Past before giving up? I read every comment, and I'd love to know how widespread this experience really was. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate it, and please feel free to click on the videos on your screen for more World of Warships content. But as always, take care, stay safe, and I wish you all the best. See you in the next one, and bye for now.